The global technology landscape was shaken in May 2025. Two leading U.S. companies, Synopsys and Cadence, confirmed startling news. They are now subject to new U.S. government export restrictions. These restrictions specifically target their sales to China. This development sent immediate ripples through the semiconductor industry. Electronic design automation, or EDA software, which these companies produce, is absolutely critical. It is the lifeblood for designing advanced microchips. The ban signifies a major escalation in the ongoing tech tensions between the United States and China, with profound implications for businesses and international relations alike. The news arrived as a stark confirmation of tightening controls. The announcements from Synopsys and Cadence did not come entirely out of the blue for some industry watchers. There had been growing speculation about potential U.S. actions. The goal was to further limit China's access to cutting-edge American technology. However, the direct confirmation from these two EDA powerhouses crystallized the reality of the new trade environment. Their software is essential for nearly every modern electronic device. From smartphones to supercomputers, EDA tools are indispensable. Therefore, restricting access to these tools is a powerful strategic move. It directly impacts China's ability to design and manufacture the most sophisticated semiconductors. The timing of this confirmation, in May 2025, places it squarely within a period of heightened geopolitical maneuvering. The restrictions are not just a minor regulatory tweak. They represent a deliberate policy decision with far-reaching consequences. For Synopsys and Cadence, this means navigating a complex and uncertain future. They must comply with U.S. law while assessing the significant impact on their Chinese operations and revenue streams. China has become a substantial market for EDA tools. The country is aggressively pursuing self-sufficiency in semiconductor production. This ban directly complicates those national ambitions for technological independence. The immediate aftermath of the confirmation saw concern spread among investors and industry analysts. What would this mean for the company's financial health? How would China respond to this latest technological blockade, and what further actions might the U.S. government take? These questions hung heavy in the air. The ban on EDA software is more than just a trade issue. It touches upon national security, economic competitiveness, and the future trajectory of global technological development. The world is now watching closely to see how this complex situation unfolds in the coming months and years, a truly pivotal moment. The entity responsible for implementing these significant export restrictions is the U.S. Commerce Department. More specifically, the Bureau of Industry and Security, or BIS, is the agency leading this charge. The BIS has the authority to regulate the export of U.S. goods and technologies. This is particularly true for items that could pose a risk to national security. In this instance, the BIS determined that the export of advanced EDA software to certain Chinese entities required stricter controls. This decision was communicated directly to both Synopsys and Cadence, outlining the new limitations they must now operate under. The move reflects a strategic tightening of export controls. According to reports, including one from the Financial Times, this regulatory action gained momentum under the administration of President Donald Trump during his second term. This context is crucial for understanding the geopolitical underpinnings of the ban. The Trump administration has consistently advocated for a more assertive stance on China. This stance focuses on trade imbalances and national security concerns related to technology transfer. The BIS's actions against EDA software exports are a clear continuation or perhaps an intensification of this policy direction. It demonstrates a commitment to using economic tools to achieve strategic objectives in the tech sphere. The Bureau of Industry and Security's mandate involves preventing U.S. technology from being used in ways that could harm American interests. This includes preventing diversion to military applications or supporting activities contrary to U.S. foreign policy. The decision to restrict EDA software exports to China was based on an assessment of such risks. The agency operates under a framework of controls that are constantly reviewed and updated. These updates reflect evolving geopolitical landscapes and technological advancements. The notifications sent to Synopsys and Cadence would have detailed the specific types of software, destinations, and end users affected by these new restrictions. This direct intervention by a U.S. government agency underscores the seriousness with which Washington views the issue. It is not merely a suggestion or a guideline, it is an enforceable regulation with legal consequences for non-compliance. Companies like Synopsys and Cadence have no choice but to adhere to these new rules. This requires them to implement robust compliance mechanisms. They must also carefully vet their Chinese customers and transactions. The BIS's role highlights the increasing intersection of technology, trade, and national security policy in the modern era, a complex web of interactions. The primary reason cited for these stringent export restrictions is national security. U.S. officials are concerned about China's access to advanced technology. They fear this technology could be used for military purposes. EDA software is particularly sensitive in this regard. It is fundamental to designing the most powerful and sophisticated semiconductors. These chips are not only used in consumer electronics, they are also critical components in advanced weaponry, surveillance systems, and artificial intelligence applications that could enhance military capabilities. The U.S. aims to prevent its own innovations from inadvertently bolstering China's military modernization efforts. The concern revolves around the concept of military end use or diversion to military end users. Even if EDA software is sold to a commercial entity in China, there are fears it could ultimately benefit the People's Liberation Army, or PLA. China's strategy of civil-military fusion further blurs the lines. This national strategy explicitly aims to leverage civilian technology for military advancement. This makes it difficult for U.S. regulators to ensure that exported technology remains confined to purely commercial applications. The restrictions on EDA tools are thus a preventative measure. They seek to close a potential pathway for critical U.S. technology to support China's defense sector. This focus on military applications is part of a broader U.S. strategy. The strategy aims to maintain a technological edge over strategic competitors. Semiconductors are considered a foundational technology of the 21st century. Dominance in chip design and manufacturing translates to economic strength and military superiority. By limiting China's access to essential EDA tools, the U.S. hopes to slow down Beijing's progress in developing high-end chips. This could in turn affect China's ambitions in areas like artificial intelligence, supercomputing, and advanced military systems. The policy reflects a belief that technological leadership is paramount for national security. The U.S. Commerce Department, through the BIS, has been increasingly vigilant. It has scrutinized technology exports to China under these national security lenses. The addition of EDA software to the list of controlled items is a significant step. It targets a very fundamental part of the semiconductor value chain. Previous restrictions have focused on specific hardware or companies like Huawei. Targeting EDA software has a much wider potential impact. It affects nearly any entity in China attempting to design advanced chips. This underscores the depth of U.S. concerns about the end use of its technology. Synopsys, a giant in the EDA software sector, moved quickly to acknowledge the new reality. The company confirmed it had received a letter from the U.S. Commerce Department. This letter detailed the new export restrictions concerning its sales to China. During a subsequent earnings call, then CEO Art de Geus addressed the issue directly. He stated that Synopsys would, of course, comply fully with the U.S. government's regulations. He also indicated that the company was actively assessing the potential impact of these restrictions on its business operations and financial outlook. This immediate communication was crucial for market transparency. The current CEO of Synopsys, Sassine Ghazi, also highlighted the significance of these developments. The impact was deemed serious enough for Synopsys to take a notable step. The company announced it was pulling its full fiscal year guidance for the period ending in October 2025. Withdrawing financial guidance is a move companies typically make only in times of significant uncertainty. It signals to investors that the future outlook is too unpredictable to provide reliable forecasts. This decision underscored the material effect the China export ban was expected to have on Synopsys's performance, creating a cloud of unpredictability. The financial stakes are considerable for Synopsys. Approximately 10% of the company's substantial $1.6 billion in quarterly revenue was derived from Chinese customers. Losing or significantly reducing this revenue stream will undoubtedly affect its bottom line. Furthermore, Synopsys reported that it was already experiencing slowing growth in China. This slowdown was noted during the April 2025 quarter. The company attributed this trend to a combination of factors. These included cumulative U.S. restrictions, prevailing macroeconomic conditions within China, and Chinese government policies increasingly favoring domestic technology providers. The ban exacerbates these existing pressures. The market reaction to the news was swift, though perhaps somewhat muted by prior expectations of some action. Synopsys' stock price experienced a decline following the announcements. Reports varied slightly, with Barron's noting a 4% drop, while CNBC reported a closing down of 1.6% on the day the news became more widely processed. This decrease in stock value reflected investor concerns about the company's future growth prospects and profitability in light of the new trade limitations. Synopsys now faces the challenge of navigating these restrictions while seeking to mitigate the financial blow and reassure its shareholders about its long-term strategy. Section 5. Cadence's response: navigating export license requirements. Cadence Design Systems, another key player in the EDA software market, also confirmed its inclusion in the new export ban. Similar to Synopsys, Cadence acknowledged the U.S. government's directive. CEO Anirudh Devgan addressed the situation, stating that the company is actively working with U.S. authorities. He emphasized that Cadence is thoroughly evaluating the implications of these restrictions on its operations and its customers in China. This measured response indicated a commitment to compliance, while also seeking clarity on the full scope and impact of the new regulations. The company found itself in a challenging new operational environment. The Bureau of Industry and Security, or BIS, provided specific information to Cadence. The company was informed that it would now require a license to export its chip design software to Chinese customers. This license requirement is triggered when there is an unacceptable risk of military end use of the technology. This detail highlights the national security rationale behind the U.S. government's action. The need for licenses introduces an additional layer of complexity and uncertainty for Cadence's business dealings in China. Each export will potentially be subject to scrutiny and approval by U.S. authorities, a time-consuming and unpredictable process. The imposition of a licensing regime means that not all sales to China are necessarily prohibited outright. However, obtaining these licenses can be a difficult and lengthy process. There is no guarantee that licenses will be granted, particularly for sales to entities deemed high risk. This creates significant business uncertainty for Cadence. It also creates uncertainty for its Chinese clients who rely on its advanced EDA tools. The company will need to invest in enhanced due diligence processes. It must carefully assess each potential sale to ensure compliance and to determine the likelihood of receiving an export license. The stock market reacted to Cadence's news with a notable downturn. Barron's reported that Cadence's stock saw a significant 3.5% drop following the confirmation of the export ban. This decline mirrored the reaction seen with Synopsys' stock. It reflected investor concerns about the potential erosion of revenue from the important Chinese market. It also signaled worries about the increased operational hurdles and uncertainties associated with the new licensing requirements. Cadence, like its competitor, now faces the task of adapting its strategies to this more restrictive trade environment while communicating its plans to concerned stakeholders. The road ahead will require careful navigation. Section 6. Industry impact, semiconductor supply chains, and China's ambitions. The U.S. ban on exporting advanced EDA software to China is poised to send significant shockwaves throughout the global semiconductor industry. EDA tools are not just another piece of software. They are the fundamental building blocks for creating modern chips. Without access to the latest versions of these sophisticated design programs from industry leaders like Synopsys and Cadence, Chinese companies will face immense challenges. They will struggle to design state-of-the-art semiconductors that can compete on the global stage. This directly impacts China's ambitious goal of becoming a world leader in chip technology and manufacturing capabilities. This strategic U.S. move is designed to maintain America's technological supremacy in a critical sector. The restrictions could severely disrupt China's domestic semiconductor supply chains. Chinese chip designers, known as fabless companies, rely heavily on these U.S.-developed EDA tools. If they can no longer access updated software or support, their innovation pipeline could slow dramatically. This could also impact Chinese foundries, the manufacturing plants that produce chips, as they may not receive designs for the most advanced nodes if the design tools are inaccessible to their clients. The ripple effects could be felt across many tech sectors within China. Analysts widely predict that this ban will accelerate China's already significant efforts to develop its own indigenous technology. Faced with increasing restrictions on foreign software and hardware, Beijing is likely to pour even more resources into its domestic EDA industry. The goal will be to reduce its dependency on US technology and create viable local alternatives. While China has made some progress in developing homegrown EDA tools, these are generally considered to be several generations behind the leading-edge software offered by Synopsys and Cadence. Closing this gap will be a monumental task, requiring substantial investment, talent, and time. The broader implications for the global semiconductor market are complex. While the ban aims to curb China's technological advancement in specific areas, it could also lead to a bifurcation of technology ecosystems. This could mean separate standards and supply chains emerging over time. Such a split could reduce global collaboration and potentially slow down the overall pace of innovation worldwide. For companies outside of the US and China, this creates a challenging environment. They may need to navigate competing technological spheres and geopolitical pressures. The entire industry is now bracing for a period of adjustment and potential reconfiguration. Section 7. Geopolitical Fallout Deepening US-China Tech Rivalry. The decision by the US government to restrict EDA software exports to China is almost certain to exacerbate already strained US-China relations. This move represents a significant escalation in the ongoing technology war between the two global powers. Technology, particularly in areas like semiconductors and artificial intelligence, has become a central battleground in their broader strategic competition. By targeting EDA tools, the US is striking at a foundational element of China's technological aspirations. This action will likely be viewed by Beijing as a deliberate attempt to stifle its economic and technological development, leading to strong diplomatic protests. This ban fits into a pattern of increasing US assertiveness on issues of technology transfer and national security concerning China. Previous actions have included placing Chinese tech companies like Huawei on entity lists, restricting access to US chip manufacturing equipment, and scrutinizing Chinese investments in American tech firms. The Financial Times specifically attributed the impetus for this current EDA ban to policy directions under President Donald Trump's second term, signaling a continued hardline stance. Such measures are often met with retaliatory actions from China, creating a cycle of escalating tensions that impacts global trade and stability. The geopolitical implications extend beyond bilateral relations. Other countries and economic blocs such as the European Union, Japan, and South Korea are watching these developments closely. They too are grappling with how to balance their economic ties with China against national security concerns and alliances with the United States. The US may seek to persuade its allies to adopt similar restrictions on technology exports to China, further isolating Beijing in critical tech sectors. Conversely, China will likely redouble its efforts to build technological alliances with other nations and promote its own standards and platforms as alternatives to US-dominated systems. The long-term consequence of this deepening tech rivalry could be a more fragmented global technological landscape. The vision of a truly interconnected world, sharing common technological standards and fostering open innovation, may give way to a more divided scenario. This decoupling or bifurcation could have profound effects on everything from internet governance to supply chain resilience. The EDA software ban is another step down this path, highlighting the growing primacy of geopolitical considerations in shaping the future of technology. It signals a period where national interests increasingly trump purely economic or collaborative motives in the high-stakes tech arena. Section 8. China's Indigenous Push. The Drive for Technological Self-Reliance. Faced with mounting US restrictions on access to critical foreign technologies, China is intensifying its national drive for technological self-sufficiency. The ban on advanced EDA software from Synopsys and Cadence will undoubtedly serve as a powerful catalyst for these efforts. Beijing has long articulated its ambition to reduce its reliance on Western technology, particularly in strategic sectors like semiconductors. This latest move by the US government will likely be interpreted as further proof that such independence is not just desirable, but essential for China's long-term security and economic development. Expect a significant surge in investment and policy support for domestic EDA tool development. China's government is expected to channel vast resources, both financial and human, into building a competitive domestic EDA industry. This will involve supporting existing Chinese EDA companies, fostering new startups, and investing heavily in research and development. The Made in China 2025 initiative and subsequent national plans have already prioritized semiconductors. EDA software as a foundational tool will now likely receive even greater strategic emphasis. The challenge, however, is immense. Developing EDA tools capable of designing the most complex chips requires decades of accumulated expertise, highly specialized talent, and deep integration with the entire semiconductor ecosystem. While China has made some strides in creating its own EDA software, local alternatives are generally not yet on par with the sophisticated solutions offered by US giants. Chinese EDA tools often lack the advanced features, performance, and comprehensive support necessary for designing cutting-edge 3nm or 2nm chips. Bridging this technological gap will be a long and arduous process. It will require overcoming significant technical hurdles and building trust among domestic chip designers who are accustomed to the proven reliability of Western software. The US ban creates an urgent imperative, but success is not guaranteed and will take many years, if not decades. The push for indigenous EDA tools is part of a broader strategy. China aims to create a complete domestic semiconductor supply chain, from design and manufacturing to packaging and testing. This ambition is fueled by geopolitical realities and the desire to avoid being vulnerable to foreign sanctions or restrictions. While the US ban on EDA software presents a significant near-term obstacle for China's chip industry, it may, in the long run, galvanize efforts that lead to a more technologically independent China. The global semiconductor landscape could see the emergence of a stronger Chinese competitor, fundamentally altering the industry's dynamics, though this path is fraught with challenges. Section 9, Future Outlook, Uncertainty, and the Quest for Alternatives. The future outlook for Synopsys and Cadence, in the wake of these new export restrictions, is clouded with a degree of uncertainty. Both companies are expected to provide more detailed updates on the financial and operational impacts in their upcoming quarterly earnings reports and investor calls. Analysts and investors will be keenly watching for information on how much revenue is at risk. They will also look for strategies the companies plan to implement to mitigate these losses. This could include focusing on other geographic markets, diversifying their product offerings, or seeking licenses for specific sales where possible, though the latter remains an uncertain path. For the broader semiconductor industry, the ban signals a period of adjustment and potential recalibration of global supply chains. The immediate impact will likely be felt most acutely by Chinese companies attempting to develop advanced chips. They may face delays in their product roadmaps and increased costs as they seek alternatives or workarounds. Some may try to use older versions of EDA software or explore less mature domestic options. However, for leading-edge designs, the options are currently very limited outside of the tools provided by Synopsys, Cadence, and to some extent Siemens EDA, formerly Mentor Graphics. In the longer term, the restrictions could spur increased efforts globally to diversify sources of critical technology. Countries and companies alike may become warier of over-reliance on any single nation for essential components or software. This could lead to more regionalized technology hubs and a greater emphasis on developing multiple sources for key inputs. For the US and China, the tech rivalry shows no signs of abating. Further restrictions or retaliatory measures remain a distinct possibility, creating a volatile environment for international technology trade and collaboration. The tech Cold War rhetoric may intensify. Ultimately, the effectiveness of the US ban in achieving its long-term strategic goals remains to be seen. While it will undoubtedly create significant hurdles for China's advanced semiconductor ambitions in the short to medium term, it also fuels Beijing's determination to achieve technological self-reliance. The quest for alternatives both within China and potentially in other parts of the world seeking to avoid US dominance will shape the future of the industry. The period ahead will be characterized by careful navigation of geopolitical risks, strategic adaptation by companies, and an intensified global competition for technological leadership, a truly defining era for the tech world.